Check, check. Okay. Looks like the sound is working. Hello, everyone. Let's get the old video going. All right. I hope you all had a good long weekend. So since we only have one lecture this week, we're going to focus on writing an essay. Now, I realize that the essay is due. Oh, you know what? Actually, I've just realized that I've made a mistake in my slides, actually. The essay is not due December 22nd. The essay is due, let's pull up the course outline. The essay is due on the last day of class, which is, where the heck am I? Yes, the essay is due on the last day of class, December 8th. Someone says in the chat, I believe you're correct. Yes, I believe you're both correct. Let me confirm by checking the outline. Yes, December 8th. Okay. And it's worth 30% of your final grade. So I have made a mistake on the slide. So I will fix those mistakes right now. December 8th, and it's worth 30%. And I will make sure to upload an updated copy of these slides. So that being said, yes, it's due the last day of class, which might seem like a ways away. Well, no, it's not. That's another mistake that I made. No, the final exam is actually going to be a lot like the quiz. So let me just go ahead and fix that too. Um, so this first point here is wrong. Let me just, it's not your take-home exam. So let me pull up just to clarify, I'm sorry about the mistake. Just to clarify, so the breakdown of your grade in this course is based on two quizzes, one of which is open now, by the way, and these are each worth 20% of your grade. These are the dates that they're going to be due by, although you'll notice I've actually slightly extended the deadline for the quiz. I think you have now not until Friday at 11:59 p.m., but Sunday. So now the due date is October 15th rather than October 13th at 11:59 p.m. So these two quizzes, 20% each, are worth 40%. The essay is due on the final day of class, so that's December 8th, and it's worth 30%. And the final exam will be due on the last day of the exam period, and it is also worth 30%. Yeah, I figured yeah, you're welcome. I figured that it might be a wise idea to offer a slight extension for this reason. Also, because tests and stuff tend to come around the same time, and you guys have like, 4 or 5 other classes on the go at one time. So you're very busy. And every professor wants a piece, they all want their essays and their quizzes and stuff. And I don't want to make anyone's lives any more difficult. So plus, my original plan was to have it ready for Monday, this previous Monday, but of course that was a holiday, so it wouldn't be fair to do that. Which means you'd only have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which is only a window of 4 days, which is not that long. This way you have nearly a week, right? Um, yeah, no, I get it. It's overwhelming. Undergrad is tough. Undergrad is tough. I get it. The final exam will be like the quiz in that you'll be able to write it any time over the exam period, but you'll have to have it completed by the due date. And the questions will be like the questions on the quiz. So we have multiple choice, true, false, short answer, and probably some long answer ones too. Yeah, what? Why would they put it the day after? That's just cruel. Yes, this quiz does cover chapters 1 to 4. That's correct. Yeah, yeah. Oh, Mohammed got it. Yeah, 1 to 4. That's right. You guys are really good about helping each other out. That's nice to see. I really like to see that. And yeah, yeah, 2 midterms in 1 week, one midterm right after Thanksgiving. I mean, who's studying over Thanksgiving? Well, I was in a turkey coma. I ate a lot of turkey. And yeah, that's rough. I wouldn't do that. Try not to do that to you. Um, so I want to talk, even though the essay is kind of in the not too distant future. Well, it was not that long ago that I was in your position. So yeah, yeah, no, I get it. I get it. I think that if you have a holiday weekend or reading week, um, sure, study if you want to, but that should really be your time. I mean, a holiday is a holiday. That's your time. I don't. We should not expect people to have to study over a holiday. And reading week, yes, it's for studying, but it's also for resting and recuperating, which is just as important as studying. If you're not well rested, if you're not sleeping well, and you are, um, you're tired, exhausted, emotionally drained, you're not going to learn as well. So, yeah. uh, Yeah, the exam doesn't show up. So to answer Jessica's question, the exam doesn't show up on the exam schedule because it's not a scheduled exam. It's a take-home exam. So that's why you don't see it on the schedule. Um, but the plan is, when the exam period begins, I will open it on Brightspace, and then you'll have the exam period to begin the exam. And once you start the exam, there will be a time limit. It'll be like the quiz, only bigger. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's right, Mohammed. Yeah, you can just if you study if you want, but you you're not busy with class, right? You can chill, study, set yourself up in a nice place in your room or wherever. Some people like to study with music, some people don't. But whatever you do, make the environment good for you to study. Um, and then studying isn't as hard, right? Studying is less like work and it's more enjoyable. Do you know that, the root of our word for school, scholarship, scholastics is skole. It's an ancient Greek word, skole. And skole means leisure time because back in the day, if you were doing some philosophy, that was because you were wealthy and you had time on your hands. But nowadays we think of scholarship as, very, very, very busy work. It didn't used to be that way. But if you can recapture some of that, study at your leisure if you can, that's kind of nice. So anyway, yes, I know that December 8th seems like it's a ways off. But since we only have the one lecture this week, I think that it would be important to um, talk about how to approach the essay assignment. So I have a brief slideshow, it's not that long, really, where I will talk about the essay assignment. When it comes to starting your essay, of course, you've got to pick a topic. And to pick a topic, I recommend trying to identify an area of interest, which can be anything related to this course and its content. So anything to do with metaphysics, mind, or epistemology is fair game. Um, you want to make sure that you have a pretty good sense of the area of interest in mind. If you were to describe it to somebody, and you can start working on your essay this way, maybe your first paragraph is about the area that you're writing on. You want to write in sufficient detail, but not complex jargon, such that somebody who's smart but not necessarily educated in philosophy could understand what your paper is about. I would say religion could be considered a topic because uh, religions make metaphysical claims. Um, so in that sense, they religious topics could be included. Um, and when we get toward the end of the text, we're going to talk about arguments for and against, God's existence, which are just as much philosophical questions as they are religious, right? So, absolutely, I would say that that could be an area of interest. One thing that's very important. Well, I'm hoping that we can come up with a list of topics today, actually. Yeah, if we can come up with it doesn't have to be a big list, but some example topics. Um, that would be that would be good if we can do that. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, we'll come back to topics like first I want to talk about um the actual assignment, and then we'll move on to talk about topics. So whatever topic you choose, you need to describe it. Um and I recommend sketching all of this out. Sketch out a an area of interest in a paragraph, then sketch out a research question or thesis statement in one or two sentences, and then sketch out a plan of attack. How am I going to actually get this thing written? What sources am I going to use? How am I going to use them? Make a sketch like this and keep it going as you work on your paper. I highly recommend doing that. So once you've identified an area of interest, the area that you'd like to write your paper about, you need a research question or a thesis statement. This is absolutely essential. Um, this example is drawn from my other course, but a research question could be something like, could a machine, like a computer or a robot, have a soul? A thesis statement captures the argument that you're going to make in your paper. So a thesis could be like, in this paper, I will argue that machines, like robots and computers, cannot have souls. And don't feel like, you know, this is just one example, right? Your argument could be about something to do with epistemology, with metaphysics, with mind. Um, the sky's the limit as long as you are writing on something that's, germane um, to the learning objectives and the course content of this class. Um, so yeah, a thesis statement usually kind of pops out, stands by itself. So after you describe your area of interest, you can then provide your thesis statement, which is one or two sentences that's meant to capture, oh, excuse me, to capture your argument, to tell the reader what you're going to try to convince them of. And a research question is really just a different way of framing a thesis statement. So you can ask a question and then tell the reader how you're going to answer it. And then that's your research question. And the answer to your research question is your thesis statement. And then the paper itself is about convincing the reader that your answer is correct. Yes, personal pronouns are fine. Actually, this is a myth. It's a myth that in professional papers we don't do this. Certain disciplines don't do it. English, history, using the first person pronoun I is discouraged. In philosophy, everyone does it. So it's absolutely okay to use the first person pronoun I. I'll talk about this in a moment, actually. Um, um, so in your sketch, you also want to sketch out a plan of attack. Um, what evidence will you use for your paper? How will you use it? What kind of argument will you write? Well, what kind of steps will feature in your argument? How will you get from your premises to your conclusion? And how will you do so in a way that convinces the reader of your argument while also demonstrating that you know what you're talking about? These are the kind of things you want to do in your sketch. So I highly recommend that everybody sketches out a plan for their paper like this, and keep updating that sketch as you work on your paper. In fact, your sketch can even turn into your paper. And if at any point you have any questions, simply reach out and ask me. I'll try, and I don't really know if I have any that I can share. I mean, there are examples of essays on the internet. Um, I can't really share anything that I've received in this class without tracking down former students and requesting their permission to do so. And it's been a few years since I taught this class, so I'm not sure if that's feasible. But there are examples of essays that you can go and find on the internet. So again, just there was a little correction here. Essays are due. Oh my goodness, excuse me. Essays are due December 8th. That's the last day of class at 11:59 p.m. There's going to be a Dropbox on Brightspace where you'll submit them. You need to submit in doc or PDF format. I can't open other file formats. So no pages files or anything. And by the way, everyone has access to Microsoft Office 360. All you need to do is download Office 360 or 365 or whatever it's called, and log in with your My Carlton 1 credentials. And then you'll have access to Microsoft Office for free, because you just get that by being a student. So yes, that is definitely something to take advantage of. But if you don't have the Microsoft Office suite, and you can't submit in with like a doc or docx, if you can't submit that file type, just convert your document to a PDF. Because I can open PDFs, I can open Microsoft Word files, I cannot open other files. Yeah, Braden, I've never heard of that problem. Yeah. Follow up with Daisy's suggestion. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. There are people that can help you get it working, right? If it doesn't work. But definitely get it working because, hey, free Microsoft Office, why not? It's a very useful thing to have in university. So the essay should be 1,200 to 1,500 words in length. This is, of course, oh yeah, that's something I didn't think of. Yeah, Google Docs is another good option, right? Because that's free. So right, your essay should be 1,200 to 1,500 words in length. That word count does not include your references section, by the way. It just includes, oh my goodness, I can't stop yawning. It just includes the main body of your paper. So intro, body, and conclusion, like the essay proper. It doesn't include like if you have a title page or a references section or anything like that. Of course, it's worth 30% of your grade. Late essays will be penalized. 10% per day will be deducted, unless there are some kind of extenuating circumstances. And if there are, you need to let me know, right? Like if you get really sick or, a friend or family member passes away or, some other personal emergency arises, don't feel like you can't tell me. I mean, tell me. Please tell me. Your information will be kept confidential, and I will work with you, to accommodate you as best I can. This little bit at the bottom is really more about the final exam, not the essay. But if something like this were to happen during the final, when you're supposed to work on your final exam, and then some emergency arises, you can apply for a deferred final examination, but you must do this with the registrar's office. So when it comes to the essay assignment, just, if there's an emergency, just talk to me. And as long as you've spoken with me and we've arranged some sort of accommodations, your assignment won't be penalized. But if you haven't spoken to me, it will. When it comes to the final, I can't really offer extensions. If there's a serious illness, you should talk to the registrar's office, or if there's some other emergency, right? Um, Obviously, your paper needs to be typed, double spaced. Even though everything is electronic now, it's still much easier to read and evaluate papers that are double spaced. Especially, it arguably easier because everything is online, and um, we spend so much more time staring at screens nowadays that um, it makes the eye strain a little worse when I've got to really focus in and read, lines of text that are so close to one another. So you want to aim for 11, 12 point font. The defaults for Microsoft Word are fine. Um, as I said earlier, Microsoft Word format, or failing that, PDF. You definitely, there's no essay proposal, but your final essay will have to include a bibliography or works cited page, because it's very important to cite all of your work properly. It's very important to do that in order to avoid plagiarism. And some of these examples here count as plagiarism. I'll read them to you. So if you reproduce or paraphrase portions of someone else's published or unpublished material, regardless of the source, and you present those as your own ideas without proper citations or references, that's plagiarism. So if take some material from a paper, from a website, and you don't attribute the author properly, that's plagiarism. You're taking someone else's idea and passing it off as your own. And it's a big no-no in a university. I'll make you aware of ways to cite. Yes. I have some resources for you. I started to say this to my other class, and then I trailed off because I was sleepy. But when I was young, going through undergraduate, each prof would have a different thing they wanted, a different citation style, right? And we'd have to get a little booklet for each one, along with all your course texts. You'd buy a little tiny book, that was all about how to do MLA citations or APA citations or Harvard or Chicago. Nowadays, there's a lot of online tools. I recommend you use Purdue University's OWL. It contains instructions for how to cite things properly. You have to be careful with citation generators because sometimes they don't do it right. Yeah, I agree, Mohammed. OWL Purdue is like it explains it. It teaches you how to do it yourself. If you just drop, something into a citation generator, there's no guarantee that it's actually going to get it right. How many references? I would say for a paper like this, between 3 and 5. Which can, of course, include chapters from the textbook. I would count the textbook chapters as different sources. So if you cite 2 chapters, that's 2 sources, right? And you're going to go for things like book chapters, books, peer-reviewed articles, things like that. Yeah, that's a good idea, Dimitri. Like if you're going to use a citation generator, do it in such a way that it's going to give you the right format, right? So the second one, we don't have to worry about the take-home part, but the essay or anything, if you submit anything written in whole or in part by someone else, that's plagiarism. No, you won't lose marks if you do more than 5, But if you don't have any citations, you'll lose marks because it's important to cite your sources, right? If you don't cite your sources, you can't really avoid plagiarism, right? Um, so submitting something written in part or in whole by someone else, definitely plagiarism. And this includes, pulling essays from the internet and putting your name on them and submitting those as if it's your own work, which, believe it or not, has happened before. I have caught one or two cases of that during my years teaching. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. Using direct or indirect quotations, paraphrasing without appropriate citation or acknowledgement. Also plagiarism. Oh my goodness, excuse me, everyone. Um, Even just failing to use quotation marks properly can be considered plagiarism. I don't tend to come down super hard on that kind of thing, because usually when that happens, that's just a mistake. Um, um, but nonetheless, it's very important to make sure that you use quotation marks and in-text citations properly. That's our tool for indicating where the ideas are coming from, right? So it's very important to cite your work properly. And of course, you can't hand in substantially the same piece of work for academic credit more than once without written permission of the course instructor. This is a first year course, so I don't think we have to worry about that. But you can't take an essay that you wrote in another class and then just hand it in this class. You have to write another essay. Um, well, if I do that for one person, then I have to do it for everyone. And I'm not gonna lie, I just don't have the time to do that. Um, that's kind of what this lecture is for, right? This lecture is to prepare you as much as I can to go ahead and write the essay. Um, yeah, so I can't really do that. It just wouldn't be fair if I did it for the few students who asked me and then not for everyone else. And we've got like nearly 250 students. Um, yeah, I'm gonna actually chat GPT was what I was gonna bring up next. So there may be a time in the near future when we work out the acceptable ways to use AI tools like chat GPT. Um, but we're not exactly there yet. What I can say for sure is that it would be absolutely unethical if you had chat GPT write your paper for you. Chat GPT could write a philosophy paper. I could write a pretty good undergraduate philosophy paper. But if you submit that as your own work, that's plagiarism. And there are ways to catch it. ChatGPT usually writes 5-paragraph essays. It hallucinates sources. Um, Frankly, essays written by ChatGPT sound like they were written by ChatGPT. There are ways to identify it. Just don't risk it. And besides, you only get out what you put in when it comes to university. You can graduate and have your BA and whatever. That's just a piece of paper. The real value is the knowledge and experience you gain while you're here. And you do that by putting the work in. So, yeah, put the work in. I mean, I don't think that any of you are going to use ChatGPT in this way, to write the entire paper. But if you are, like, stop and think to yourself, like, what are you doing here? I mean, you're here to get the most out of your university experience. University's hard. Um, but if you put the work in, you can succeed. And if you just have a robot write all your stuff for you, well, you might as well just throw away your tuition money. I mean, what are you really spending it on? Because you're not developing those skills that you're here to develop. Um, Now there may be ways to use ChatGPT ethically. Um, no, no, we haven't done that yet. You haven't missed that. That is topic formulation. No, we haven't covered that yet. So far, we've covered the format of the essay, how to do a little sketch to get started, and now we're talking about avoiding plagiarism. Well, you can always change your voice up, and I'll tell you how to do that. So yeah, ChatGPT. Yeah, there might be ethical ways to use it. Yeah, maybe helpful with note taking. That might be possible. I've never used it that way. I envision a future where a not too distant future where we're using tools like ChatGPT, kind of similar to how the characters on Star Trek use the computer. And I don't know, I'm showing my age a bit here. I'm talking about like 90s Star Trek, right? Where they're like, computer, I need a program that computes the subspace quantum whatever, right? And they're not writing the code line by line, right? The computer is being used as a tool and you can talk to it. It does what you want, and you're just using it as a tool. ChatGPT maybe could be used that way, to bounce ideas off of. But as far as writing the whole paper with ChatGPT, it's definitely unethical. Oh, nice, nice. Okay, I'm not the only Star Trek fan. Well, then Muhammad knows what I'm talking about. It's like, computer, do this, and the computer does it. And then you can say, not quite like that, computer, more like this. And the computer just, and it's true, Sam, like you say, yeah, there's plugins that now you can talk to ChatGPT. Um, so I think that one day sooner rather than later, that's probably where we'll be at, where you'll have yeah, yeah, it is. The future is now. So I think it's probably okay if you use it that way. Just please, please, please do not have it write your entire paper, because when it comes to plagiarism, I can't deal with it on my own, right? I can't just, as your instructor, say, don't do it again and wag my finger at you. No, I have to take it up the chain of command. I have to talk to the department chair who has to take it to the dean. And then there's an investigation that happens. And if you're found to have plagiarized, it goes in your academic record and you can face penalties like getting a 0 on the assignment or failing a class. And I don't want any of those things to happen to all of you. So just don't chance it. Really, the only time I've really seen serious cases of plagiarism, stuff that wasn't a mistake, like, oh, I forgot to use quotation marks, that's okay. That's technically plagiarism, but I'm going to assume you probably just forgot the quotation marks because you remembered the in-text citation, but you forgot the quotation marks, right? So I can use my better judgment there. But um, the few times I've seen like legit plagiarism, like having someone else write your paper or ripping a paper from the internet and putting your name on it is out of desperation. Um, you might be in a situation where, I mean, maybe things got away from you and the paper's due at midnight and you're like, oh shoot, I don't have a paper. What am I going to do? I'm going to fail. I'd rather hand in plagiarized paper than a badly written one. But don't do that. I understand that things happen and things can get away from you, right? If that happens, talk to me. I'm not going to be thrilled about it, but we'll make some accommodations. I'm not going to let any of you get into that desperate situation where you feel like you have to cheat. Because I think that's really where I've seen the plagiarism happen, is when students are panicked and desperate. So if you are panicked and desperate, talk to me. We'll figure something out. That's right. Mohammed, yeah, like time management. Yeah, that's really important. No, in that case, I would probably just ding you a mark like, forgot the quotation marks. I'm not gonna send it up the chain if you just forgot. Only if it's like obvious that you're stealing ideas. Like if you're like, oh, I came up with this theory of perfect forms, that and all of reality is really just shadows cast by these perfect forms or something. Well, come on, you're plagiarizing Plato, or you couldn't get away with it with Plato because Plato's a bit too well known. But if you tried plagiarizing like that and it was obvious, then that would also be a problem. You know. Well, a paraphrase is when you're putting someone else's words in your words, and a direct quote is when you're quoting the other person's words. Yeah. That's a good approach, Mohammed. Yeah. Not everyone's like that though. Um, some people need the stress. So that's fine. Yes, do cite the textbook. If you use a chapter in the textbook, definitely cite it. Um, yeah. Well, some people are real sticklers about those quotation marks. I mean, yeah, I will dock you marks, but I mean, is it worth an investigation? I mean, I don't think so. Yeah, no, that's insane. Maybe in the English department, not here. Yes. Well, yes, you can rephrase things. All you have to do, look, just remember this. When in doubt, cite. So, and that's another thing. When you get the plagiarism talk, it's like the worst thing in the world, right? Like if you forget a quotation mark, you will be expelled and die. Like what? No. Like, and frankly, there are far worse things going on in academia um than undergraduates accidentally plagiarizing stuff, right? Um, but if you want to safeguard, just when in doubt, cite, right? If you're not sure, cite. Yeah. So if you're paraphrasing something, I'm gonna get to the types of citations. Um, but if you're paraphrasing, that's when you're taking someone else's idea and expressing it in your own words. Um, you don't need quotation marks because quotations are for quotations. You do need the in-text citation. Quotations require the quotation marks and the in-text citations. And if you're ever not sure, better to be safe than sorry. Just cite. The important thing is again, the kinds of plagiarism that I tend to see are stealing ideas from someone else and handing in work that's not one's own. And those are fairly easy to identify. And usually, especially the latter kind, occurs out of desperation and panic, which is why, don't panic. It's okay. Like, okay, maybe you drop the ball. Maybe you've got stuff going on. Like nowadays there's a lot more awareness of how mental health um impacts course sequence sheet. Oh, that's the course outline. Yeah, Ryan's got that one. It's under course details. Um, what was I saying? Yeah, desperation and panic. Right. There's a lot more awareness of how mental health impacts students nowadays. Before it's like when I was in school, sure, you break your leg or something, you probably get an extension, but uh, when I was in undergrad, that's when I first learned about what things like anxiety and depression were, and other mental health concerns too. Didn't really understand what they were before then. Um, and now there's a lot of awareness about how that kind of thing can affect students. So if your physical health or your mental health is affecting your ability to get things done, you can let me know. And don't be afraid to take advantage of the resources that are here at Carleton. Um, the university experience can be pretty tough on some people's mental health. And so we have resources here to help you with that if you need it. Yeah. Sometimes I get like what I call frazzled. Um, so if I'm working on something, I'll hit a wall and become frustrated, but I can't stop working on it at the same time. And I just get like hyper focused but hyper frustrated at the same time. Um, that can happen. Um, or if you have, if there are issues with, depression and anxiety are quite common, and they do affect how we think. And you need to be able to think clearly to write an essay. So if you've got some stuff going on, and you're finding that you're having a lot of trouble getting work done, getting assignments done, I mean, consider talking to somebody. You know, doesn't mean you're lazy. It means maybe you got something going on, and it would help to talk about it. And of course, if you find that there is something happening, accommodations are available. You can work something out with me, and you can visit the Paul Menton Center to get some kind of assessment there. They make sure assignment accommodations are in place for people with physical, mental health concerns, people with learning differences, people who are neurodivergent, right? So if you fall into any one of those camps, we got you, right? That's what I'm saying. Don't let yourself get into a desperate, panicky situation where you feel like you can't finish the work. Um, we're here to help. I think so. But there's a new one every semester. So, it happens sometimes people get to university and, they might have like a learning difference or something that they don't know that they have, because they've gone through high school okay. But university is harder than high school. So you get here and all of a sudden maybe you start having some troubles that you didn't have before. And you're like, what the heck? Am I not good at university? Well, no, maybe you just are learning in a way that's different from other people, but you've never realized it. So then you go get an assessment at the Paul Menton Center, and we figure out what's up. And then going forward, you get the accommodations you need. But in the meantime, I'll still work with you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you know what, Ella? That's a common thing with women, Um, my partner didn't get I hope she doesn't mind me sharing, but she was in a similar situation, except she was like 30, she was like 32. So yeah, imagine that. I know grade 12 is not ideal, but man, imagine being in your 30s. So it happens, it does happen. People slip through the cracks, right? Yeah, Brooke, I agree. I agree, because yeah, yeah, the inattentive type. That's right. Because with boys, it tends to be more the hyperactive type, but women tend to be either mixed or inattentive. It's very interesting stuff. We learn more about the mind every year. Uh, very, very fascinating. So I recommend for avoiding plagiarism that you use um, APA style. There are lots of different styles that you can use, and if you want to use another style, that's fine. But I recommend APA, and I recommend you use Purdue's OWL. I think Mohammed already mentioned that in the chat. This is a link to their website. And if you go to the helpful materials module, I think I've linked you directly to the yeah, APA 7. Yeah, you want to go with the most up-to-date one. And I think in the helpful materials module, I have linked you to the APA 7 guide on Purdue's online writing lab. So it's there. What kind of essay can you write? Well, here's a few different kinds of essays. There are survey essays, survey papers where you survey or do a literature review of some area or field. Now, your essay needs to feature an argument, right? You have to either convince the reader of your thesis statement by making an argument, or you have to answer a research question. So you can't just do survey, but all good papers have an element of survey within them. You know, you have to review some literature so that the reader has the requisite background to understand the argument that you're making. So maybe you want to write a paper on substance dualism versus substance monism. You want to argue that one of those is correct and the other is not. Well, first you have to explain what both of them are. So you might survey, you know, Plato or Descartes to tell the reader about dualism. Maybe you'd survey some pre-Socratic philosophers to talk about monism. Then you would make your argument, right? Yeah, that's another good point. Some citation generators could be a bit outdated. It's not a huge deal if you use APA 6 instead of 7. What I care about is that you are aware that you need to cite any writing, any ideas that are not your own. It has to be, the reason why we do this is because it has to be made clear which ideas are yours and which are not. And citation tells me that the ideas that are not yours are not yours. And it tells me whose ideas they are, right? A little slip up like using APA 6 instead of APA 7 is not a big deal for me. What's important is that you are citing things, right? That's the important part. You can also so yeah, your papers are not going to be survey papers, strictly speaking. They do need to have some argumentation in them. But a good paper will have some survey, some literature review. When it comes to different arguments, you know, you can write a positive argument, so you can argue for something, or you can have a negative argument where you argue against a particular position. And you can even have an adjudicative argument where you adjudicate, you argue, and you make a judgment, you determine between two or more different positions. There was a mistake on the slides. That's why. Yeah, I'm going to upload corrected slides after this lecture. But the information in the course outline is correct. So it is worth 30%, not 40%. So yeah, I'll go back and make that change now, actually, just make sure. Oh, I think I already made the change, but I haven't uploaded these slides, these updated slides. So yeah, it is worth 30%. Yes, but the exam is take home. It'll be like a larger version of the quiz, of the quizzes, like a longer version of that, and same idea, but I'll probably break it into different sections. So the quizzes are broken into different sections, but you have to do the entire quiz all in one go. I probably won't, I'll probably break the exam up a little bit. I'll explain that more later, when it's time to talk about the exam. Well, I mean, this is the important thing about making an argument. And I obviously I haven't read your paper, but what you have to do is provide good reasons. You get one attempt on the quiz. So yeah, you have to provide reasons why you're correct. So it's interesting. Yeah, before you submit the quiz, I believe you are able to go back. Yes, that would be like a research question. The word limit is 1500 or 12 to 1500 words for the paper. So yeah, all this is in the slides and in the course outline. Um, yes, no worries, no worries. Um, you say, Casey, opinion. Um, I haven't read your paper, obviously. Maybe you're right. Maybe Romeo and Juliet is over romanticized. Um, and I'm not saying you did or didn't do this, but the important thing is in a paper is you're not giving opinion. You're giving an argument, right? Like, remember, think back to when we were talking about knowledge, and we talked about the excerpt from Plato's Meno, where Socrates likens right opinions to the images of Daedalus. You know, they're beautiful when they stay with you, but they can get up and walk away if you don't fasten them down. And fastening them down is that's the reason, that's the justification. So in an essay, you're not giving an opinion, you're giving an argument, and you're trying to convince the reader that you are right by giving them good reasons, right? You want to provide good reasons for what you say. So I'm not saying that you didn't do that. I have no idea. I haven't read your paper. Incidentally, I agree. Romeo and Juliet is over romanticized. Do you know? Do you know what my evidence is? Taylor Swift, right? That was like her big giant hit back in the day, right? Back when she did country. I don't listen to Taylor Swift, but it's kind of hard to get away from Taylor Swift. She's like the biggest thing since sliced bread. So Romeo and Juliet, the song, what's it about? The love story. You guys know the song I'm talking about, right? Kids these days still listen to Taylor Swift, right? Yeah. I mean, it's a happy song, right? It has a happy ending. But Romeo and Juliet doesn't have a happy ending, right? People have this idea of Romeo and Juliet the play, like it's this fairy tale. But we forget it's a tragedy. I mean, Romeo and Juliet, spoiler alert, they both die, right? Oh, a ballet. I didn't realize there was a ballet. That would be cool. Yeah. Yeah, that would be neat. I didn't know they did that. But that would be pretty cool. But yeah, Romeo and Juliet, perhaps, if you were to argue something, you wouldn't be arguing that in this class. Um, but I think you could make the case. If that were your thesis, you'd want to provide evidence. And maybe one of your bits of evidence could be the popular understanding of Romeo and Juliet. And you could use like Taylor Swift lyrics to show that, well, most people think of Romeo and Juliet like this, like in the Taylor Swift song, when actually it was a tragedy where our main characters both die at the end, right? Um, and they're also so young, Romeo and Juliet, they're like 14. They don't know what the heck is going on. They haven't figured anything out. They're madly in love, but it's just youth. It's oh, yeah, Romeo. Oh, problematic. Yeah. Oh, I thought they were both young. Yeah, I thought they were both young. I didn't realize Romeo was 30. That's weird. Yeah, it's pretty weird. Yeah. Oh, he's 21. Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, see, I'm not how I don't know why a teacher would not find that a convincing line of evidence. Yeah, you know what? Well, I'm no Shakespeare expert. Um, I thought they were both 14, but yeah, if Romeo was older, okay, maybe yeah, like his name is not given. Dylan says maybe he was older by a creepy degree. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Well, we'll have to settle this later. Maybe next class we can determine properly how creepy it was, right? But the age issue aside, yeah, you provide evidence, right? You want to provide evidence to back up your thesis. That's what this will very roundabout way of saying that you need to 80. No, I don't think it's that bad. Okay, 13 and 16, which still, I think my point stands. It's over romanticized in the sense that, these are just kids, right? And they get infatuated with one another and they die. Um, it's yeah, it's not a happy ending. That's my point. Um, okay, another thing from high school English besides Romeo and Juliet is the five paragraph essay. How are we doing for time? Okay, we got about 20 minutes left. Um, I want to emphasize that the five paragraph essay is really just a teaching tool. So, the five paragraph essay is something that you probably learned about in high school. However, it's not how we actually write an essay. So, you don't want to limit yourself to like one intro paragraph, three paragraphs in the body, and then a conclusion. You want to use as many paragraphs as you require. And the paragraphs should work as steps in your argument. Arguments feature premises and conclusions. Maybe what you want to do is have each paragraph dedicated either to explaining an important concept or idea or explaining a premise in your argument, step by step. Yeah, you want to go step by step. Don't limit yourself. Yeah. Yeah, it's like limiting, like I wish this was something that was emphasized more when I was in high school, right? Like I thought that that's just how, we just write five paragraph essays. Okay. No, you don't. You write essays of whatever length you need to. um that's what you'll be doing here. Um and always remember, essay means to try, to attempt. To attempt what? To attempt to convince the reader of your thesis, your argument. And again, you should have a thesis statement, one or two sentences that conveys the argument that you're trying to make, conveys the thing that you want to convince your reader of. And an argument is a matter of using evidence and good reasoning. It's not a fight, right? If you're having an argument, it's not like, I had an argument with my friend over what to order for dinner. No, that's not an argument. I mean, it is in the colloquial sense, but in the sense that we mean here, an argument is an attempt, to convince somebody of something. You do that using good evidence and good reasoning. And arguments consist of premises and conclusions, right? So, very simple examples of arguments would be like deductive syllogism or modus ponens, right? These are both things that have you know, come up in our book. Deductive syllogism would be like, all bachelors are single. Jones is a bachelor, therefore Jones is single, right? Real simple. Um, so that's two premises and a conclusion. But you're going to have premises in your argument. And again, this could be what your paragraphs describe. Maybe you have three premises, and a conclusion. So you have a couple paragraphs for lit review, three, 4 paragraph explaining the premises of your argument, going from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 in your argument, and then finally concluding. Your argument should be straightforward. Don't try and make things sound complicated. You want to avoid unclear writing, and you also want to avoid logical fallacies. I don't think we have time to go through all kinds of logical fallacies, but you can look up. You'll want to Google informal fallacies. Take a look at the kinds of things you want to watch out for. And maybe on the Discord server, everybody can post examples of fallacies so that we all know the errors of reasoning that we want to watch out for, right? And just to reiterate, you can do this thesis statement thing as a research question. So you don't have to be like, give your area of interest, and then in this paper, I will argue X. You can also frame it with a question, which is better, X or Y? Well, I'm going to try to convince you that X is better than Y, right? Well, it depends on the topic that you choose. I think you should go with something focused. Don't try and write an essay that covers everything we've learned. That's not the idea. The idea is to pick a topic that's interesting to you, come up with an idea, and convince the reader of it. To join Discord, you download Discord app, and then you can use the link in it's either you can find it in the course outline or in the helpful materials module. You click that link, it'll take you to the server, and then there's a text channel in that server specifically for this class. That's how you would do that. I'll skip this one. Yeah, use plain, simple language. Yeah, no problem. Use plain, simple language. Don't try and sound smart by using a lot of complicated technical jargon. Don't be afraid to use the thesaurus or a dictionary. I know these seem like elementary tools, but they are very helpful. It's absolutely okay to use the first person pronoun. I don't know why people are told that that's not okay. We do it in philosophy all the time. It's probably because, you have English class and not philosophy class in high school. And I believe the convention in English literature is not to use the first person pronoun, but we're in a philosophy class, so you can. That said, you don't have to. You can also keep it third person. So instead of I will argue that, you can say this essay will argue that. Or if you want to get really fancy, you can use the royal we. In this paper, we will argue that, X or something, right? That's fine too. I always tell people to be careful of problems with punctuation just as much as problems with spelling and grammar. So you're going to want to watch out for comma splices, like commas where there shouldn't be any commas. Sentence fragments, incomplete sentences, basically. Run-on sentences. So a sentence that should actually be 2 different sentences. Things like parallelism. Semicolons are the worst. No one uses them correctly at this stage of the game. Just don't use them, because you're probably not going to use them correctly. Oh, thanks. Yeah. So there's the link right there if anyone wants to join. Oh, that takes you right to the channel too. Oh, okay, that's handy. Some do's and don'ts. Again, well, I'm just gonna skip this because we've only got a few minutes, and I'm sure you all want to know about what kinds of topics you can write about. So that is what we should discuss. Yeah. Yes, but but how relevant would that be for this class, right? Because um this is mind, world, and knowledge, right? So this is metaphysics, epistemology, and mind. This would be more for like it's a good topic, but it would be maybe something more for an ethics class. What you want to do here is here's what I recommend. Grab yourself the textbook. I'm going to grab it right now. Now, of course, if you take a look at the textbook, especially the table of contents, you can see a nice breakdown of everything in the book. Um, so you can get an idea, each chapter is on a particular topic, and that's what kind of how you want to think of your area of interest, right? Maybe you're interested in knowledge. That's your area of interest. And you got a whole chapter about knowledge right here. And in this chapter, there are different arguments being presented. Um, we get the traditional view of a priori knowledge, then how the rationalists look at it, how the empiricists look at it. Then along comes Kant, right? Um, then Quine, Kripke. Then we talked about Gettier cases, right? So there's an area of interest and then specific questions. You probably want to pick a question or a claim from this book. That's how you want to generate your topic. And when you think of it that way, you have all this stuff to go on. You have knowledge, skepticism, like we started out with. Next week, we're going to talk about perception. So, like, how do we perceive the world? Do we perceive the world directly, like as it really is? Am I really seeing the book itself? Or am I perceiving it indirectly? The book is this is not the book. This is a mental representation of the book. Or is idealism true? Maybe there is no mind independent reality and all of these, there's no book in a world. It's an idea of a book. And the only reason the book continues to exist when I leave the room is because the mind of God, or we're all in the matrix or something, right? Um, Lots of topics to choose from. Um, the nature of the mind would be very interesting. Here we're getting into the dualism versus monism, i.e., physicalism. Is the brain reducible? Is the mind reducible to the brain? Or is the mind really something ineffable and mysterious like the soul? Um, Personal identity would be really cool. Um, what are you? Is there even a you? It seems like there is a you. You go to sleep and lose consciousness and get up the next day, and you seem to be the same person you were the day before, even though there's this temporal gap. No, these topics are not. No, these are just from the book. These are just from the table of contents. Yeah. Um, this is stuff that we will cover, but we haven't covered yet. Basically what I'm saying is, don't be afraid to like read ahead. Like if you're looking here and you go, oh, the nature of the mind, physicalism, am I just my brain? What? Maybe you want to read ahead a little bit and get some inspiration going, right? Personal identity, like, are you you? What is a you? Is the self even real? Or is it an illusion? Free will. Do we have free will? Are we determined? The big question, biggest one of all, does God exist? If God does exist, what is he like? If God does not exist, how should we live our lives? Um, don't be afraid, by the way, when you're coming up with topics. Like I said, I can't look over your essays as you're writing them and provide feedback. But if you have a topic in mind, and you want to ask me about it, I can definitely do that. And maybe over reading week, I can even hold a sort of informal gathering on Discord. And it will just be like a town hall kind of thing. And people can bring their ideas and we can spend an hour or so discussing potential topics. If people are interested in that, that would be something that I would consider doing over reading week. It looks like people are already leaving. Um, well, I guess we'll wrap up shortly. Oh, okay. Dementia and the nature of the mind. So Casey, what comes to mind when you mention those things to me, to my mind, is memory and personal identity. So, what is personal identity? It's the sense that you are you, not someone else, right? So, what makes Casey Casey? Well, not just uh, their physical nature, but their memories. Um, Imagine this, if a mad scientist rewrote all my memories, maybe they gave me one of your life's memories. And then I wake up the next day and I don't have any of Josh's memories, but I have all of Casey's memories. Who would I be? In a powerful sense, I wouldn't be Josh anymore, right? What does dementia have to do with that? When the memories start to go, what impact does that have on personal identity? Yeah, that's a really cool thing that you could talk about. Josie asks, could we do something along the lines of asking, what if? Yeah, but you've got to make it like pertinent to the course. Like you've got to address a sort of the sort of questions that we're addressed. Like, so what? Okay, what if everything is a dream? What does that mean? How would that work? Could you connect it with some kind of Berkeleyan idealism or simulation theory or the evil genius or the brain in the vat? Like you have to make those connections, right? Owen says an argument for or against whether computers. Yeah, that would be absolutely awesome. I would love to read a paper about whether computers could have consciousness. That's actually well within my wheelhouse. I think I would be pretty well suited to grade a paper like that. So, and that's kind of what I do. That's what a lot of that's where my own interest falls. Is in, you know, sci-fi sorts of questions like that, right? So no, these examples are not in the syllabus. Um, but maybe I could provide a list of topics. Oh, before I forget, another good way to come up with questions and topics, the discussion questions at the end of each chapter are a great way to kick off uh, thinking about an essay. Yes, you can mic for a second. Liam, to answer your question, no, religion is fair game, but you must be charitable. You can't attack religion. Don't be like a Richard Dawkins, okay? Don't be all like, oh, religious people are delusional. Sorry, that's a pretty bad Richard Dawkins impression, but um, don't be like that. You have to rather assess particular claims of particular religions. Thanks. It's a good try. Yeah, Dawkins. Oh, he's just so ugh. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am an atheist too, but Dawkins is like kind of a jerk. I mean, he's just like, oh, religious people, oh, so dumb. Why are they so silly? You know, come on, man. Like it's a thing humans do. Religion is a human thing. Um, Well, I mean, you can critique a religion or you can look for overlap with between religion and philosophy, but you can't actually use um religious stuff for or against certain claims. Like if you want to argue that there's a soul, you can't just reference the Bible, right? Because in religion, it's a lot more about faith, belief in the absence of evidence. Whereas philosophers want good reasons for beliefs. That's not to say that, you can't have religious faith in anything. It's just that there's a different approach to belief in religion and philosophy, right? Um, okay, sorry, Casey was going to say something. Go ahead and test
Oh,
that mic.
I hope my mic's working. Okay, there we go. So a couple classes ago, I had remembered this like paper that I had come across like years ago. I had gotten on the city bus and the bus driver just looked at me and he just passed me this paper. And what's written on it, I don't actually understand what it means because it's very it sounds like advanced English to me, but also sounds very philosophical. And I kind of wanted to run it by you and see if it meant anything to you because I've held on to this paper for literally years and I've never understood what it means.
Huh.
And
We could,
supposedly it was written by a teacher from a high school in 1970 because that's what he wrote with pen on the back, but he had just printed this off.
huh. Do you have it now?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, let's
Um,
take a crack at it.
all I know though is I have a gut. Oh my gosh, does my mic work? Sorry. I have a gut feeling that maybe this was just like normal 1970s English class stuff, and I'm just a modern day kid, and I'm dumb.
Well, we'll see.
It's titled as self syntax. Um, it says, "I am I, and I know me." Subject, object in my sentence, knowing subject, object known. Singular prime person I am this present pulse completion. Incomplete, new predicate now.
Huh.
Participle trinity, being knowing and becoming, ever modifying me.
It sounds like a poem about self-identity. It's not nonsense, but it's like it's poetry. That's what it strikes me as. It's about the nature of the self, I would say.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Apparently, it was written by a teacher named Miss Barbara Louise Escott from Niagara Falls Collegiate Vocational Institute.
Wow. Huh. It's
Supposedly,
funny.
I don't know, because some random bus driver just, I got on the bus from high school, like the city bus. He just handed it to me, didn't hand it to
Yeah.
anyone else, and I never saw him again. It was so bizarre.
Yeah. Kind of like a an email forward. Yeah, chosen one. Tiana had one question here. Can I add a personal experience? Maybe to contextualize stuff, but anecdote. So like, oh, this happened to me, or I heard from so and so. These are anecdotes, and they are not really good evidence. Um, so and look, like I know we're just about out of time, but one thing I'll say is like I do get this question a lot about pursuing religious discussions in philosophy essays. Of course, it's fine to do so. Um, some of you are. This is university is a really interesting time in your life. The idea of university is to challenge yourself, or that's one of the ideas of university. Challenge yourself, challenge your beliefs, question your beliefs. Yes, you can use the first person pronoun. You can use first person perspective, third person, or you can use the royal we. That's all good. Um, you get here and you're meant to challenge yourself, to question your beliefs, your fundamental assumptions about yourself and the world. Now, some of you come from a non-religious background, and some of you come from a religious background. For those that come from a non-religious background, yeah, maybe it can be hard to put yourself in the shoes of religious people, but I invite you to do so. Doesn't mean you have to become religious yourselves, but one of the things that you can get from a university education is meeting all these different people and learning about them, which is wonderful. Um, for those that are religious, um, everything I do here, everything I say is not to try and change your mind, right? I don't want to convert you. I don't want to turn you all into atheists. I don't want to have an army of Richard Dawkins at my beck and call or anything. Um, but it's part belief change is part of the university experience. And if not belief change, you at least need to do, to know what other people out there think and believe. So it's okay to discuss religion. You can't use religious evidence as evidence in a philosophical argument, but you could use philosophical or scientific evidence for or against religious claims. That said, if you want to stay away from religion and just talk about things that are more generally theological, that's fine. Like if you want to talk about whether God exists, you can do that from a neutral perspective. You don't have to take a Christian or Muslim or Jewish perspective, for example, right? I mean, that's okay. That's a weird example because they all believe in the same God, right? But you know what I mean, right? You can kind of decontextualize things if you want, but you do have to be careful. You can't rely on anecdote, and you've got to provide good reasons for what you claim. Well, we better wrap it up. Um, so when it comes to generating topics, I highly recommend looking at which chapters are the most interesting, which claims and arguments from which chapters are interesting, and the discussion questions at the end of each chapter can also be very helpful for helping you generate a topic. And I think what we'll do reading week, which is the week after next, is I'll hold a sort of essay town hall and we can talk about potential topics together. Um, or maybe we'll do it via Zoom and then I can post it on YouTube. So that's all. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you all next week. Sorry for keeping you for that extra 4 minutes there, but I think it was important to say that stuff. Anyway, thanks a lot, everyone, and I'll see you next week. Let me know if you have any questions at any time.